guys. Happy weekend.
Happy weekend.
Second episode of 2025.
Almost the end of January?
Yes.
Almost.
I think it might be February.
Ew.
Maybe, I don't know.
That
feels like something we should know. Actually, I think it might be the last weekend of January if I'm thinking about the
timeline
content calendar.
This really quite concerning though.
It's a bit sickening.
The time's going so quickly.
I know.
We're going into the month of love, supposedly. We love you.
If you're new here, welcome to Blonde Vibrations.
I'm Liz.
I'm Lily Emma.
Yes, this is Champagne Whispers.
Episode 39.
Oh. Why does it feel like we're so rusty?
I know, I feel a bit like, whoa.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. Even
yeah,
though
we don't normally get like this.
I wonder if it's because what we're going to discuss, which we'll tell you in a second, it's been on our minds for a while.
It feels also a bit meta.
Yeah. We've discussed this at great length between us, and it's just now time to let you in on it because it's a worry of ours. We worry about. Well, you actually do know what the topic is because you've picked it. But
so the big question on our minds this week is overproduction ruining your reputation?
That's a heavy
It's
one.
really loaded. We have planned slightly more than usual because I feel like we have to be very careful with our words here because, I feel like in any sense, if you're talking about creative practices, there's a lot of personal preference, and we're trying not to offend or at anyone.
Yeah, it's not against anyone in particular. We also don't deem ourselves to be the perfect creatives. No. There's definitely things and areas that we need to improve on, but overproduction is not one of them. I will say.
Yeah, I think we've kind of
I feel like
hit the nail on the head with that one.
We've worked to get to a place where we feel like our work balance is on its way to healthy at the very least. So
I agree.
This is not at anyone, but I said earlier that if you do come across this and you feel in any way atted, then that is okay because we are allowed our opinions on the matter, and if the shoe fits, wear it.
We're kind of going to take a structure of kind of the risks and reasons that you may be overproducting, and then the damages that can cause, and then kind of a conclusion at the end.
Yeah. We're not doing this just to
be like, we're better and you're not. And you need to stop making rubbish.
Yeah, there's ways to work towards getting a balance, and this isn't us deeming ourselves teachers on the matter. It's just a discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
Light-hearted.
Yeah, and we've got our peppermint tea.
We do. And
that I would love to sip, but I feel like it's going to be too hot. But mug haul. What have you got yours in? Oh!
Mug haul.
Very in tune with the new branding.
True.
Oh, it's not even a bad temperature. It's a really good temperature. I also feel like this conversation is really well timed. You would have just popped up as I was speaking. Becky probably cut out the silence you just went. I feel like it's really well timed to talk about this again, because we talk about it a lot in our personal lives. I feel like with the slight rebrand of the podcast's Instagram, and also kind of with distance from tuning in between launches, I think that I feel like we've got quite a lot of experience in the matter.
It's also just becoming more and more relevant as we see social media change, and people want to grasp onto what's working, figure out what's not working immediately before inevitably it all changes, lest we forget that we were all hit with the Instagram update that changed the squares to the more portrait looking feeds. Say no more. And TikTok was also gone in America for
14 hours.
For enough to go to the bathroom, come back, and it was there again. So.
Literally just had a long sleep
just
and had breakfast off your phone. Okay, should we start with why you may be overproducing?
Yes. Risks and reasons.
Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Kind of. I actually do kind of have a introductory, thought.
Go ahead.
Is that I kind of do think it's natural to overproduce, and I think when you're building something, if you're like us, you just get excited by it and you're just like, I just want to get it out now. And I know for sure that I think we always kind of had that balance where we couldn't overproduce. Like when we started the radio show, we couldn't run with it because we physically couldn't, because we could get in the studio.
And we did run over time to time again, and it panicked us. Let me just tell you, setting the scene of being in that radio suite at uni, if you ran over, you would just see the heads of the people who were in there next appear in the glass panel in the door, and you'd be like, a song's playing, we've not even done the outro, we've got another segment left.
Yeah.
And you just see them, or sometimes they'd tap their hand on their wrist.
So
and we would also be those people sometimes, not to that extent, but you'd have to be like, we've got a show. Like, it's our turn now. Like, we need the radio waves.
Yeah. So I do think there's something really fun in when you're starting something new, being excited by it and wanting to share it with people. And, you know, some artists say that that's kind of the best way to release music, don't they? Is that you always hear people on like press runs and they're like, yeah, we wrote this really quickly and we just released it within the next like 6 months, and it means that what we're putting out right now is actually like how we still feel. And I kind of understand that, and I think, you know, even to a certain extent with tuning in, because we mass recorded them in like all 3 in one sitting, it kind of felt like by the time the last one came out, it felt like it wasn't in the moment anymore. And I do get that's really frustrating.
Yeah. It also feels like, so for instance, our line of creating, a lot of it is on something that you can see on a feed. If you've just made an account for something, you want to see a really presentable, attracting feed immediately and almost lay out bare exactly what you are doing, so that when people find you, you might have only been doing it a few weeks, but they already see this and that and what wants to like bring you back and attract you to the page altogether, that you might in the first few months overproduce.
Yeah, and it
just
also
because you want to be there.
There's such a rush, I think, because creative fields are so oversaturated. I feel like there's such a rush to be this like 3-dimensional thing and have loads of, you know, posts, loads of products, loads of episodes, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like I need to have loads of stuff so that people will, I don't know, people will like take me legitimately, I guess.
No one really wants to go onto a feed and just see coming soon or coming in a month, come back in a month, because the way people are, and we really just don't have the attention spans these days, is you won't, or you'll like it and you'll be like, I'll come back to that in a bit then, or you know, like, oh, come back for part 2. If part 2 is not already on that feed or coming the next day, especially with TikTok brain and everything, we won't even remember that your page exists unless we actively follow it. But if you're still building, then why should we follow you just yet?
Yeah, I also think it's interesting while we're talking about social media is that obviously social media promotes creators that produce consistently, and I think for a lot of people that it feels like you need to have a story up every hour, you know, for example, rather than like, oh, actually I'm going to put one story up every day, or, you know, it's like consistent posting is what will get you good on the algorithms. And it's like, well, actually for maybe TikTok you need like 3 TikToks a day, but for Instagram you only kind of need like 2 or 3 a week. But then when you hear consistent, you think, oh my god, that's daily. Yeah. And it's not daily, and I think to a certain extent, I guess this is one of the risks of overproducing, is that to a certain extent that's then not going to push the algorithm, because you'll just get random ones that don't hit, whereas if you post less, that's still consistent. But I think like algorithms really feed into overproduction, because you kind of think the more I produce, the more it will land.
If you have one video that does really well, you then want to do another 5 of the same topic or same setup.
Yeah.
Just to get that like almost instant gratification again, and then the second it doesn't do as well, you're like, well, that was bad then. Gotta now make something else quickly to try and like rectify that. Yeah. I don't know.
What do you think the biggest reason of overproduction is? Sorry,
I think
going off your script.
I think it's a combination of things, but at its biggest, and we spoke about this briefly last week.
Yeah.
I'm
trying to see if we're still lined up.
Well, I have lots of reasons that fall under still the grindset of it all, is because all of these things can be in play. Algorithm, you can know other, everything. You could simply not care. But if you have that grinder mindset once again, it's in the culture of it all. Is like you're being fed these things by social media or the sales and things, and you want to top it and double it. There's no second once you finished a project to stop and breathe. It's okay, on to the next project, like next club, no sleep, because you want to just keep on reaching more and more heights, which there's good attributes to that, but not all the time, every day.
It's also making me think of our tuning in episode with Sophie, isn't it? We spoke to her about how, I'm going to paraphrase this, but if you're interested, just go and watch the podcast, it's really good. But she says, doesn't she, when we're asking about hitting so many milestones, if you find time to kind of step back, and she was like, no, I don't, because I'm always kind of
on to the next,
because you kind of have to, because that's how growth works. And then there was kind of this really sweet moment, like 3/4 of the way through, that we all kind of sat there and we were like, we all need to kind of take a step back and see how far you've come so that you can keep going. Because I feel like if we're going for this like weird like yellow brick road analogy, like you don't know how much further you have left to go until you get to the destination, the Wizard of Oz. If you don't look back and see how far is behind you. And I do also think if you're a creative, it's so important to be self-motivated. And I think social media is so great for building community, but I think a lot of people are now so like number hungry and community based. It's almost like you need to make a post and have like 10 people be like, oh my god, this is great, for you to do it again. Where it's like, no, it's like if you enjoy doing it, it doesn't matter if 2 people comment or if 20. If you want to do it, do it. And I think that kind of need for community and need for response and need for numbers ultimately is then what makes overproduction. Because if that doesn't work, I'll just try something else, or I'll just try something else, or I'll just try something else. Because
we're not necessarily numbers motivated, and there is downsides to that in some way. Once again, we're not perfect in any way. But if that is your like final boss motivation, then you are going to overproduce, because you'll do whatever it takes just to reach new people every time who will follow. And I swear to God, this is not anyone in particular. Some people really like, I don't know the word, like bask in the idea of being seen as like a busybody and always grinding. And always having something to share. Yeah, like always, I've got this in the works, I've got this coming up, stay tuned for this. Like, even if you've just posted a million things, but there's more. There's always more. I said that you want to be seen as something, not necessarily what you are producing. You were out doing niche, I was making money. Like, that sort of thing is, what were you all doing when I made 10 posts this week and I did this and I set up these interviews, and like, oh, we can only do it based off of like what we know in our realm, but these interviews
sent out this amount of emails,
meetings with this and this person, I've got back-to-back schedules. What were you doing?
I think we kind of forced ourselves out of that. I always have this memory burned in my brain of so many interactions that we've had with people where we wouldn't see, like industry people, and they'd be like, oh, how's the podcast? And it would be like February, and we'd be like, yes, it's okay, it's quiet. Like, especially like before tuning in, our big time was festival season. We kind of were just kind of on our own, floating around in our like student house when it wasn't festival season. I remember people used to ask us like, so what's new with the podcast? And we used to just be like, yeah, not much. Like, we're just kind of plodding along, but slow and steady. And I think because of that, and because we were so kind of isolated in a way in our craft, I feel like we never quite had that like need to flex, need to constantly tease and, really kind of hype up small things just because it seems like a big milestone. I feel like we were like very curiously, I guess it was because we didn't know the culture, is we were so like curiously candid with it. We're like, people would ask us how it's going, or we'd be like, it's quiet, but like,
yeah,
it's good.
There's nothing wrong with stability in something once you found your feet and have that security in knowing that what you do is good. Each thing you post or create or put out into the world is good. And it's not to say that people who post all the time are insecure. I don't mean that.
No.
I mean that I have a real vengeance against the like, I'll have a day off when I'm dead type mentality. I don't agree with it. I think once again it's going back to the taking time to smell the roses and things like that. You just want other people this is a crazy thing to say, you want other people to judge a book by a busy cover. You don't want them to look at you and think, my year of rest and relaxation. You want it to be a crazy cover that they're like, wow, what's going on in the inside must be mad.
Crazy. But I think the risk with that is then when people open the book and it's like
where's the plot, or where's the character development?
This is just like a collage inside. It's not actually like any depth or any like substance. Yeah, I agree. I think I was kind of thinking about insecurity when I was thinking about this section, and I do think overproduction is a sign of insecurity, and not in like a deep way, not in like a like, you are so insecure, don't know what for,
you hate yourself.
But more in like a, you don't quite know your place. And I guess it goes back to last week's episode as well. You don't know your place, you don't know your lane. So you're kind of, we always use this phrase for creatives, it's like you're kind of like putting your, sticking your thumb in all the pies, which is fine and it is natural. And I think especially if you're in your earlier stages of a project or your career, I think, trial it out. And I was listening to a podcast earlier and they were saying like, you're going to be bad at things, but like just give it a go and do full send, and you never know where it might take you, and that's really admirable, and I do get that. I think the problem comes is that like when you've had that phase and you're now like at a certain point in your career and you're still doing that, it's kind of like, not like at this point you should know who you are, but also like you need to do some like, take a step back, do some soul searching and think like, no, this is the route I want to take, and I'm going to go down that road, because I think eventually if you're on like the motorway and you're constantly changing lanes, it's going to slow you down because you're just constantly like braking and trying to fit into that gap and then trying to fit into that gap. Whereas if you just stay in your lane, you're going to keep going. God, I've got all the analogies today.
It's giving me.
Yeah.
You want
it's that peppermint tea.
You want to create with intention, not just for the pure fact of creating. Because what sort of outlet is that for you in the end? If you're just rushing, you're off your feet trying to get something done, just have something to show for it. But if you took the step back and thought, this is what I want to make, it's not what I need to make, it's what I want to do, so I'm going to do it right.
Yeah, I agree. My last reason for why I think people overproduce, again, we're going back to social media, is this kind of need to be like the first or the best. And again, this goes back to our thoughts on competitiveness that we spoke about in the last episode. But I think there's such a need to like, I'm going to be the first person to interview that person, I'm going to be the first person to like post this or do this, and I'm going to be the best one, I'm going to do the best interview. I'm so like bored of that.
I thought the exact same thing. I've said that a lot of being the first to do something is for bragging rights. Like, as blunt as that is, you just want to brag that you did it first, or you, in our lane, discovered people
I was just thinking
first.
that, and I was trying to think of a way to say it that's not asking people, because I don't even mean it like that. I think
you can see it like quite widespread. Everyone wants to be the one. Like, everyone wanted to say that they discovered Chapel Roan before she went
or like
huge.
Gracie Abrams, and I'm like, I get that, and I understand in the moment, like I really understand, like, oh, here's this small artist, I think they're going to be big. But at a certain point, like, if you say that about everyone, you're just trying to throw as many darts out and hoping that one will stick. Do you know what I mean? And I think it kind of loses its substance. And I think there's a real culture in like journalism, but also I do think in like artistry as well, in the sense of like, I am the first artist to have this sort of visuals, or I am the first artist to collab with this person. And it's kind of like, I get that, but also what does that mean? And also, like, I kind of feel like the first of anything's kind of a trial run. And it kind of doesn't mean anything, because the way that the creative world works is that you'll do something first. Matter of fact, to someone at some point, whether it's tomorrow or 5 years time, will do it better. Like, I'm fully aware that hopefully no time soon, and I don't feel like anyone could, but there might be a time in which we kind of fade off from tuning in, and some new little Blonde Vibrations juniors will come around and they'll be really good interviewers. Do you know what I mean? And I think I kind of have this real, like, temporality view of the creative industry. And I don't know, I am wearing a Taylor Swift t-shirt, but I don't know if it's like the Taylor Swift Phoebe Bridgers nothing new, like innate understanding in me, but I'm very at peace with knowing that there are going to be people better than us, and that's okay. But if we're so secure in what we do and it feels so natural and it's not forced, I don't think anyone could do that. You might do a better interview than us. You might interview, so I'm going to say her again because she's already been mentioned. You might interview Sophie and it might be a better interview than us. That's fine. But what you can't take away is that, like, what our interview is and
what people take away from it.
Yeah, and I think that's a more important thing than being the first or being the best, is that, like, if it's unique and it's true to yourself, then no one else can do that.
Well, it's like slow and steady wins the race, which it's not saying fall into laziness. You know what? Really take your time, and if you interview someone, don't worry, you can release that in 5 years and it's all the same. Like, that's not what we mean, because the music industry in particular, it does move at a very quick pace. However, you're right, and let's say an interview, you may interview someone first, but that doesn't, also on the flip side, your one being first doesn't make it better, just simply because it's out in the world first. That could be a whole, what's the word, myriad of reasons, like scheduling, like just getting together equipment and things like that. There's so many reasons why things might just genuinely take longer, and that's fine. And also, going back to the point of discovering people first, you do lose authenticity if you begin to say with every single person, I knew they were going to be big, I knew they were going to do it, I said this.
How many people did you say that about and it didn't happen?
Now, are you saying it to everyone at the time for that reason, once again, so you can go back if ever they do and brag about it? Or was it because you were such a genuine fan, you were thinking, no, more people really deserve, like, she deserves to be in front of this huge audience, I'm so proud that she did it, and it's such a joy for me to have been listening and, like, taking in what she's been doing for all of these years? Or is it, knew she was going to be big because I said it?
I'm really intrigued by, and I guess maybe this is something we need to talk about with, like, someone who does produce that kind of content, because we don't, and I wonder if at some point we can have, like, a sit down conversation about it. But I'm really intrigued because I don't think I believe in, like, a rhyme or reason to why someone makes it big. I feel like that's quite a heavy conversation, and I feel like I don't actually have enough thoughts to back it up.
The side eyes while saying it as well.
I'm not sure. But I don't think I believe in it, and I think you can have a gut feeling that something's going to take off, and I think you can truly believe it, and I think that fits very much in how we think about things, and I think you can kind of tell often that something has star power. You know, if someone's really doing something unique or really putting their all into it, and you're like, I know that's going to make it big. I understand that. What I don't understand is how some people can really pinpoint, like, this.
Like, predict.
I actually saw Chapel Ronan when she supported Declan McKenna. I knew she was going to be viral, and it's kind of like, did you though? Like, I don't know if you physically can know that, and I wonder, like, I know the thing is, I'm saying this, and this is why I'm, like, not saying it with my whole chest, is that I know that there are people and this is their career. Like, their career is to, like, scout the next big talent, and I've seen it happen with, like Friends, that they get approached with, like, 2 songs by, like, major labels, and they're just like, you've got it, like, that's gonna be. And I do understand that as a thing, but I don't know how personally I believe it. Is that, am I making sense?
I think it's a lot of being in the right place at the right time, luck on your favour, money, and all of these things. I will say, when I went to see Bryson Tiller when I was, like, 17, SZA was supporting on this tiny stage and no one knew or care. Just because I'm aware of her presence then, she's obviously huge. You know who SZA is. I'm not gonna turn around and be like, I discovered her. Like, that was even like luck and fortune and right place, right time to even have been there to see her. I wasn't like, oh, there's this underground artist called SZA that I just really think is gonna make it.
But more you power. Still liked her then.
Yeah, and those 2 Snapchat videos I have, I will hold on dearly. So I'll never make.
I even had a friend the other day who said that when they saw Lana at Latitude in 2018, I'm not sure if that's right, and they were like, I just didn't appreciate her. And that's so late in Lana's career. And we were having a conversation about this, and I was kind of saying, like, well, at that time, it was kind of like the Lana vibe. It wasn't like even as like a Lana fan at that time, it wasn't really like oh my God, like, this is one of the best songwriters of our generation. It was more just kind of like, wow, Lana Del Rey, like, household name. Do you know? And I that's why I'm kind of questioning now this idea of, God, we're so off topic.
We'll get back
why
in a
I'm
minute.
Questioning this idea of cause and effect and being able to see that cause, and how, let's circle back around, and how people can, I think people ultimately overproduce in order to get those kind of diamonds. Is that it's almost like you're grabbing like a pile of rocks, and one might be a diamond, but you've grabbed the pile of rocks. And I think ultimately that is what overproduction is that you're picking a name of 50 names out of the hat, and one is like Katniss Everdeen.
100 people in a room, just take
and I think that's what it comes down to, and I think that's the attitude that causes all of this. And I've not planned this, and this is just like, it feels like an epiphany.
Well, I will tell you, and I won't tell you who said it because I can't remember their name, but I know who they are. Someone in a position within an industry told me, as a piece of advice for our interviewing, is to do as many interviews as possible. So if one of them makes it big and we have a snippet that we can every so often just post because we know that we were there with them earlier on before they made it big, then we will be set for life, because all we need to do is every few months, whenever that artist who is now huge does anything, we can essentially just rerun it, remix it every single time.
And we were even saying about Harry, didn't we? We said this about Harry the other day. We were like, you could get a HD video of Harry, and every time he does anything, you can just use that same clip and you will go viral every single time.
We went viral with a video of Lana in the summer. I then took this same video when she announced her tour with just a different caption, and it went viral. So there is so much truth to it, but it then does run the risk of you're not doing it because you're, nurturing these artists, or because this video clip was just, I can't believe I even got it. Yeah, it was because there's a chance that you can just spin it for your benefit later on in your narrative, not because you found this artist or you've done this piece of work or written this thing that you just truly believe is the next big thing. Full stop.
Yeah. And I think that is what's killing your brand, is losing its authenticity in overproduction. I don't think overproduction in terms of algorithm and whatnot is a problem. I think what is killing your brand and your reputation is its lack of genuinity.
I think so. So we're going to talk about the effects, the potentially detrimental effects to your reputation, your brand, your place in society. It's not as deep as it sounds, but let's start.
I feel like we've kind of started going down the hill to this anyway, so I feel like this is good timing to move on.
I've made a little situation for myself.
Yes.
So, if the people you step on within the competition that you've not only entered yourself in, you've actually gone ahead and entered everyone around you in it, then they're your close friends, or they're people that you have, genuine, authentic, real life connections, just to get this leg up in the artificial space you've created. Do you not think that is a problem? ? These are real people that you're affecting. You could be in any space. You could go to an art club, you could go to a writer's retreat, you could do anything in which is creative and people. and you're all working together. Yes, at the end of the day, you are technically competition. However, the other people might not have asked to have been enrolled in this competition. They didn't know that you were fighting for first, second and third place. They thought it was we're all just in our own lanes, but you're trying to get this gold medal.
Yeah, it's like I'm writing pop music, you're writing rock music. We're not in the same competition, but because we both want to make it big, we are now competition.
It's the idea of not being able to see space for everyone else because you want to hold the biggest amount of space, which is then going to damage.
It's just crazy to me. I just feel like... I know this is a conversation that is happening because of the whole 14 hours without TikTok in America. Is that a lot of people kind of saying, like, without... I don't know if this is what your TikTok actually was saying. I actually didn't... I never watched it because I was always with you. So apologies if I'm relaying it. But people were kind of saying, without the Americans oversaturating the, like, big TikTok scene, there's more space for smaller British TikTokers to go viral and get views. Is this what you were saying?
It's not what I said in the TikTok, it's what I said in Blank Street.
Amazing.
Amazing.
And because I actually saw a TikTok this morning of this girl being like, now that all of the Americans who are doing XYZ are gone, here's my applications being like a replacement. And I think I understand it. I do get it, and I get it, and I would be silly to say that the thought didn't cross our mind, especially in the whole influencer podcast scene, which I'm absolutely not going to get into. But at the same time, do you not think that social media is limitless, and there's no such thing as a box of space on Spotify? You know, there's not like actually, if you don't put this EP out now, there's actually not going to be space for your EP, so you actually have to release it right now. And I think I get a lot of satisfaction. Again, I feel like I don't know, I feel like in this episode I'm really like vibing with like temporality, but I also feel like it's kind of like it's all like just a thing, and it's, why is there competition? Because it's not like a tangible thing. And you're seeing that, oh yeah, this other artist is my competition because, like, they're going to get listeners that I want listeners. They can listen to both. They can listen to your interview and they can listen to our interview. It doesn't need to be a competition.
It's also, and this is a really weird example to bring into it, your top artist of the year was Taylor. Mine was Billy, and then one of our housemates was Charlie, and we all just kind of like compared. We were like, oh, we were all just like listening to like the girls this year. There's not just the female artist. No. Like, we in life don't perform to be, you know, best female artist at the Grammys, etc. We're all just doing what we do to serve out our days. And sorry, this is getting a bit high level here. Just live out our days and just be content in how long we get to do these things that we have the privilege to do. I wouldn't want to only feel like there's limited, like you were saying, limited amount of spaces to do things.
I just think we're at risk of repeating our last episode, but would you not rather have friends than enemies? It is so bizarre to me. It is so scary being creative. Like, it actually is. Every single time I press post on Instagram, my heart skips a beat. It is horrific. And again, I was listening to or watching something about how, I think it was, have you seen that last meals podcast?
I'm not sure.
And they get the people on, and then they have what their last meal would be, and the interview is really good, and it's long form, it's really good, you'd really like it.
We talk about last
and every
meals.
time it starts with like, as humans we all have one thing in common, we all gotta eat and we're all gonna die. Ooh. Oh, you're gonna love it. And Emma was on it, and so was Brittany Broski. I can't remember which one of them said this, but they were like, posting on the internet is like the scariest thing ever, because you really have to like leave everything at the door, kind of be really embarrassing and post whatever without thinking about what other people are gonna think about it, because otherwise you're just gonna be a really bad content creator. And I feel like that's what you need when you're posting, but that means that it's so important to have friends in the same sphere, because it means that when I post a reel that looks slightly different, or if we post a review, it's the friends that kind of mean more than followers in being like, oh, I can actually see how hard you're working on that. And we have really good friends who do that. You know, something will happen and straight away they'll be like, I can see how hard you work and you really deserve that, and I can see how hard you're working behind the scenes, like and that's what means more to us than followers and listeners, as much as it's important and it keeps it growing, and ultimately that is another part of it. But it's the genuine community and the genuine friendships outside of the screen that actually does make it bearable. So it is just so bizarre to me that there are some people out there who would rather see their peers as competition and as enemies, and as someone who are gonna take down your project to benefit their own. Whereas to me, like, we're all linked in arms and we're all supporting one another because there's space for us all on this basically imaginary platform.
Yeah, it's the fact that it's all artificial at the end of the day. It's crazy, like, whether it's Spotify or Instagram or whatever it is, once you log off, it's very much, it all feels very much like you're all born the same way and you all die the same way, of you're born alone, you die alone type thing.
Yeah.
Everything else in between that, a lot of it is kind of fabricated and online, artificial, imaginary, because everything is so online, and that is how pretty much everyone pushes their creative agendas these days. What's wrong with having some friends? And I know that makes me sound very naive, and it must be a personality
and it also
thing.
If you're a listener, it's probably also like, all right, I'll go like log off there, and do you know what I mean? And we don't mean it like that, but I mean it more in the vein of us being like, we should go outside more and we should see our friends more. And I think, to me, as someone who, neither of us really had that much experience in like the creative industry before the podcast, and in the years that we have been doing it, I think we've really learned that it's important to have people who understand what you're doing and can be creative in other ways, or even in the same way, that you're actually like friends with outside of the industry. And that is like so invaluable to me. And I think it's that real life connection where we can go and talk to someone and we're not on the podcast, and they can come on the podcast and we can chat, and then we can go where there's not a camera and we can have really organic conversations. I think that is vital in producing good content, because you kind of have like one hand in the online world and the creation element, and one hand in the real world, and you can actually understand what people want, and you're not just like sat at a laptop all day every day writing or producing. You're kind of, I don't know, you get to step away and look at it with fresh eyes, and you get to speak to people who will actually tell you how it is. And I feel like there's such a nature online of like, I'm going to compliment this person because they're going to compliment me back. And that is in itself a form of overproduction, because you're overproducing so much smoke. You know, you're like, I'm going to really praise this person, they're going to really praise me back. And it's like, well, at a certain point, the praise doesn't mean anything, because you're just saying it because they did it on your post. You're just commenting because they'll then comment back and you're going to look really cool, and it's all performative.
I think it's quite difficult because there's no set amount of what is like the golden number of how much you should be producing per week or month or year. It's going to be how much is right for you, and the limit is at what point is it not genuine anymore, because you genuinely could, you know, if you don't do anything else because your like whole thing is I listen to an album a day and I review it, so of course that is going to be a different level to someone whose whole thing is I do monthly favourites.
Well, it's the Claudia shift, as in YouTube Claudia. It's the like from daily vlogging or like weekly vlogging to monthly, and she was like, I feel like it's better quality. She was like, it's the same content, but I feel like I can put more time into editing it.
Well, even Seffi and Wing, right?
Yeah.
They said they were going to do maybe less episodes.
I actually wrote this down. But no, continue.
Less episodes, more structured on where they're going to do it, because they basically said you might be able to tell that we're a little bit burnt out, so it's better for us, and then in turn you, that we're going to be doing less but more at the same time, because it's more high quality work and less rushed off the cuff. That I'm starting to paraphrase what they're saying now, but
And also, what I had written down, because I knew you were going to go down a different path, is they also said that when they were producing twice as many podcast episodes, they weren't getting twice the amount of audience. They were getting the same audience, just split in half, because half the people were listening to, say, episode A, half the listeners were listening to episode B. Like, that's really stuck with me in the idea of production, obviously, probably because it's a very similar format and like a tangible thing to us. But also, I think that put into words exactly how I feel about overproduction is we could post every day. That doesn't mean more people are going to see it. And if anything, algorithms, people aren't going to see it, and people won't be as excited to see it because they're like, oh, here goes one vibrations again.
Well, I actually do unfollow people now at this point. I'm very trigger happy these days when it comes to unfollowing people. If you do anything in any way to get a bad vibe, I will unfollow you or block you. But I'm finding it more and more at the minute. If I see too much of someone on my feed and it's not exactly who I want to see every day, I don't want to see you at all. So sometimes I really enjoy a creator that I really like posting once every so often, and I'm like, they're back. What is it? However, if I see something or someone post every day, I think I'm more likely to be like, I'll catch up on the next one. I'll see what's going on in a bit. I don't know. And I'll just scroll, and then the way how Instagram works, as you all know, you'll refresh once and it's gone, and then you have to go and find it, and we're all lazy again.
Yeah.
But if I'm just seeing day in, day out that one name or 3 names, whatever, I will just scroll, and that is maybe my own problem, but it's also not, because you get what you want out of the experience of being online.
I think, and I think this might also be hopeful thinking, is I think that like younger generations and, you know, the social media society is really starting to move away from short form and I don't know the word for it, but yeah, just like
snappy, clickable content.
Yeah, I really do think it. I think, and this might just be because it's the way I think, but I feel like I'm starting to see a movement towards, you know, longer interviews, video essays again. I mean, even like TikToks, you see what they're filming limit has now gone up. You can now post like an hour on TikTok, like sickening. Concert. Yeah. But I think you can tell a lot about the way that social media audiences are changing based on the updates. And while I hate the new Instagram update, the reason why the landscape photos are there is because it's your photos like better quality and they're taking up more space on the screen. And I think, oh god, this is so like analytical, but I think like that says a lot in itself, that the photos are bigger on your screen, you're spending longer looking at the photos.
Well, when you're on TikTok, you're on one video and it's the entire thing. You don't get to see half of the next one, whereas you do for Instagram pre-update.
And I think like everything's starting to get longer, everything's starting to take up more space again and more depth, and that doesn't give itself to overproduction.
No.
It really doesn't, and I feel like that's a good thing. I think if we could all just stop spending so much time in getting like half-hearted little like voice clips and more time into talking about people's like humanity, everyone's going to be happier and likeable, and social media is going to seem more real and less just like the highlight reel and the guys, I've had like back-to-back meetings.
Okay. No one wants to see that. This is one like trend pendulum swing that is going in a direction that I like, of the more longer form content. People are going back to YouTube. Everyone basically said goodbye YouTube at one point, and now people are wanting to go back on there because they just have a bit more like space to fill over there, and it's a bit more unlimited, wicked.
Yeah.
But I think there is a way to find this balance.
I agree. Like, start rounding this up, because we said it was going to be a shorter episode.
I think just because you are at risk now of like maybe doing a bit too much that is disingenuous, you can stop, you can take a step back. I think all it takes is just slowing down. And I've said that you kind of have to like ask yourself inwards. You can't ask anyone else like what's the right amount, but am I gaining from this content? And I've also said, if there was no longer like a social gain or a monetary gain, would I still be posting / consuming this? In our case, I've put the example of, if we're reviewing an album, is it for the shares? Is it because the artist might put it on their story and then we'll get the followers for it? If social media goes down the drain, which you never know, it could at some point, is it something we would still listen to and have the same thoughts?
Yeah.
Like, are we going to say this is the best thing since sliced bread if we don't actually mean it?
Yeah.
I think very highly of sliced bread and bread in general. So you actually have to be a top billing sort of artist to reach that. And it's not to say you can't try something new, listen to new things and learn and shift in your opinions. It's not that. But if all you ever do is say how much you hate a type of music, and then you've seen a potential opportunity in someone, you're like, okay, I'm going to say that you are the best thing that's come out of this year. I don't think you should do that anymore. It's getting the balance between learning, finding new opinions, but sticking to your morals with it, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's heavy on the quality over quantity. And I think that while the whole point of being creative is acting on your impulses, I think with the nature of social media, those impulses are no longer necessarily wholly creative. I think it's because of social media, I feel like you can't be creative without having an impact and I guess like an impact placed on your brand. And I don't think you can completely separate the two anymore. I think you can no longer be an artist without caring about the aesthetics of things. You can no longer be a podcaster without finding a way to share it in short form content. Do you know what I mean? Like they're kind of so wrapped up that you do have to think strategically about your creativity and whether you think that's really good or whether you think that's really bad. It's not up to me to decide. But I think that makes it really confusing to decide what these impulses are. You know, you could be laying in bed and thinking like, oh no, you know what I should do a post for this. And I think you just need to like think, am I doing the post because that's what I want to do creatively, or am I doing that post because it's going to like get me viral? Because if it doesn't go virally, you're going to think that was a waste of time, or you're going to think like no, I think it's funny, or I think it's good, or I think it looks good. So I think it's kind of that quality over that quantity. And again, we say this every time, but I really do think that if you strongly believe in something and you're passionate about it, then it will do good. And I think people want to see that. I also think with the nature of social media and people not really wanting to see that much of people, I think people can see straight through it if you're not being genuine, because all it takes is one post, ultimately. And, you know, while we're talking about the instability of social media, literally all it takes is one sentence, one post, like one weirdly timed thing, and people will see it and they'll see straight through you. So if you think you've got like a front up, you don't, because it will have a crack in it. And I think that's why it's so important to be genuine and like produce high quality where possible.
I think my final point on the matter is, you are doing something creative. It's not necessarily always the traditional route. You have a chance to really have fun with something. At the end of the day, you can't really pull this out of thin air. You have to have some sort of genuine interest for it in some way, whether it be music, podcasting, writing, painting, whatever. You have to be invested in some way. Don't drag all of the fun out of it by really driving it home to a point where
I have to make money from this. I have to do X amount of posts so that I can monetize or I can reach new people. Yeah,
or it's at the point where I'm not even sure I'm really believing what I'm putting out, but I already told people I'd do 5 posts a week, so that's what I gotta do. This is meant to be a fun thing for you, and if you really enjoy posting every day, entirely different. But you know within yourself how you feel about things. I wouldn't want to post on Instagram every day. My personal Instagram, I don't like posting full stop. If I started doing that every day just to push blonde vibration stuff, that is not genuine for me. But someone who posts their every thought, so genuine. So it's going to be different for every person, but it's really just having fun with the content you're creating at the end of the day. Otherwise, don't do it, because there's so many people in the space. If you're not enjoying it, just don't do it. Go find something else that you will enjoy. I mean, it's the TikToks that we make that we think are so funny, and I'll go and post it, and every time without fail, I'm like, that's the one that's going to get 10 views.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do, and sometimes they get loads, and it's like, whatever the payoff is there, it was fun. At the end of the day, I loved doing it. That's it. That's my final point. You just have to have fun.
Yeah, I agree. And I think...
And care about the people around you.
You can overproduce if that's what you want to do. Like, if you want to post every day, post every day. But if you're thinking, am I ruining my brand?
It's probably already ruined.
It probably is. If it's not... If you're forcing the overproduction, I think that's ultimately what's ruining your reputation, because people can see the force.
The force is with you.
I think we need to wrap this up.
If you have enjoyed this podcast episode, you can, wherever you are, follow or subscribe.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button, guys. Like it.
If every single
it.
one of you watching this video right now liked it, you know, only 95% of people watching are actually not subscribed.
Is that Kami?
Yeah. Or someone. I don't know, people are always like,
it's all of them.
Yeah, which I actually saw our stats of how many people watch our videos and don't subscribe, and it's crazy.
So get on it.
So please follow, subscribe.
We have our website. It's on the screen, blondevibrations.co.uk, and it will be active again very, very shortly. It is.
It is active now by the time you're watching this.
Yeah, we're in the future now. It's already there. Go check it out.
Got some fun articles on there that I'm not going to name in case anything goes wrong.
Yeah. And I also invite anyone who has a wider opinion on this, who's in the creative industry, if you've made it to this point and you actually really either really agree or really disagree, we are willing to do a part 2.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Yeah, I would love to do a part 2. I'd love to have some other opinions. We always said before that we'd do voice notes of people. So if you're I want to be on the podcast, but I don't really want to be there.
I'm not in
I don't really want to sit on Lily Emma's sofa. I get it. Send us a voice note and we'll play it and we'll discuss this more. I feel like we could talk about this forever, and I feel like we can go back and forth with other opinions. I'm also very aware that we are a bit of our own mini echo chamber, so the more opinions, the better.
Yeah, so that's that then.
Our Instagram is blonde_vibrations, TikTok is blonde vibrations.
Big year for us.
Big year.
Is that everything?
I think so. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
See you in 2 weeks' time.
Take care.
Love ya.
It'll be February. Oh my god.
The month.
My phone.
The month of love. Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.